All right, couple of caveats. So Sarah says this song needs to be heard, which is one of the best compliments I ever got about anything I ever wrote. But and it's somewhat about hope. It's hopeful, I think. And my conversation with Tom Williams this morning made me feel that way as well. And resonates with that. And also, I had to drop it down a step and a half, Andy, because it's Sunday morning and I'm old. And I always think I need the lyrics to my own gosh darn songs. I wrote my first good song on a pink guitar with just 2 strings. It didn't take too long, 'cause back then I knew everything. Now my muse is old and broken down. She drinks too much and started sleeping around. But at night sometimes I hear that sound. There's a friend of mine who's made up his mind to change the world. I don't need to be convinced. I've known him ever since he was a little girl. Now he's North Carolina bound, proof in hand so he can wave it around as they pick their jaws up off the ground. And I still believe we can all be brave and beautiful, hearts on our sleeves, with fists tied in our hands, unafraid to behave in a way that says, I can't wait to make my stand. Here I am, brave and beautiful. On a McDonald's sign, someone tagged a line for Daniel Prude. And on the other side, a flag flies high, says we back the blue. Now with no middle ground in sight, a war between red and blue and black and white, are we headed for the next great fight? And get ready for the insurrection, blindly moving out in all directions. Before you find it from, before it's said and done, there's only us and there's no perfection. The arc of history is no direction. You are not what you want, we reap just what we've sown. Can't we remember that we're not alone? There's a melody that came to me at the break of dawn, whispering just enough from off the cuff to lead me on. Now but it's all gone, the sun is now. A million notes left scattered there on the ground. She blew me one last kiss and she left town, and I still believe. You know I still believe, I still believe, yes I still believe, unafraid to behave in a way that says I can't wait to make my stand. Yeah, here I am, brave and beautiful, brave and beautiful, brave and beautiful.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Justin Wilson. I use he, him pronouns, and as the Congregational Life Coordinator, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this service at the First Universalist Church of Rochester. If this is your first time here this morning, we especially welcome you and thank you for making it to our worshiping community. We invite you and everyone to remain after service for a coffee hour in the Clara Barton Lounge behind us through these doors or online in the same Zoom link. There's also a visitor's form on the back of your order of service or by clicking the link in the chat. We ask you to fill this out so we can offer you a welcome beyond what we can here this morning, and so you can stay up to date as to what's happening here at the church. If you have a big joy or sorrow in your heart this morning, we invite you to write it in the notebook here on the chancel or in the chat on Zoom anytime before the chalice is lit. So now is a good time to do that. A couple announcements. After service today, we are hosting our newcomer circle. So if you are new to our church or to our faith and want to learn a little bit more about it, come join us, myself and the minister, upstairs in the minister's office after service. A reminder, book club is just 3 Sundays away. So if you haven't read the book yet, get your hands on Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. It's one of the top 5 banned books in the U.S. And the Parent Caregiver OWL information meeting. There's not going to be an in-person meeting today, but the Zoom session tomorrow evening at 6:30 is still happening. So email Reverend Michelle at edu@uuroc.org for additional details. Okay, before we take a moment to turn towards our neighbors in person, let's wave and greet our online worshiping community by waving towards the Progress Pride flag in the back where the camera is. If you're online, please pop a greeting into the chat. We're happy you're joining us here this morning. All right, for those of us here in person, let's take a moment to turn towards our neighbor and offer a greeting.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Reverend Eileen, she, her. I want to invite you to stay standing if you already are, or to rise in body and spirit as we sing our first hymn together. Anne's going to teach us a little how to sing this maybe new to us hymn, Hold On.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Am I on? Okay. So this is an easy hymn. You can see the words will be up here. It's hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Join me. Hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Again. Something else to sing, you can do what they call a drone. So you just stay on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. So if you want to put that in, go right ahead. Here we go, both parts.
Today, I begin with a poem. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words. and never stops at all. Some of you recognize Emily Dickinson's work. I Love This and Feathers, which I have collected over the years. Hope, ethereal, shape-shifting, beautiful, amazing, much like feathers. One summer's night, 21 years ago, my husband died suddenly. Our daughter, Kelsey, who attended Sunday school here, was only 15. I was left dazed and hanging on by my fingernails, with no time to despair. Kelsey was even more disoriented than I was, and high school was resuming soon. My worries about Kelsey kept me putting one foot in front of the other, hoping to manage as a suddenly single working mom. We made a plan. Kelsey was a talented young horsewoman, so we decided that what she needed was a horse of her own, a project, no feathers, just horsehair. By October, we had found the horse, a tall, stunning 8-year-old chestnut racehorse who was being retired from the track. A vet who knew him claimed she'd let her 15-year-old ride him. We hoped she was right. He needed a good home because many gorgeous thoroughbreds become French steaks when the racing career is over. Horses presumably don't know to hope for a new owner who won't butcher them. They just trustingly walk into trailers to get shipped someplace, for better or worse. Now, horses are very therapeutic animals. Just don't try to take one on an airplane. There is no hope for that. Kelsey promptly renamed her big red horse Murphy, another Irishman in the family, like her dad had been. Our Penfield trainer first saw our spirited gelding when he pranced off a horse trailer, still high on a shot of testosterone. She would have preferred to pick a trained hunter-jumper for Kelsey, but nonetheless, our trainer, too, hoped he would work out. Having not gotten a vet exam for Murphy, we crossed our fingers and hoped he would prove sound. Thankfully, he did. The training began. Murphy was a delight. Just the second time Kelsey went to the bar to ride him, she walked right by his temporary paddock. Murphy adorably ran back and forth by the fence, whinnying to get her attention. He knew her already, and he hoped that she would come to him. Now, show horses must know how to walk, trot, canter, and jump beautifully, often in line with other horses. Thoroughbred racehorses only know how to gallop as fast as possible from a standstill, aiming to get to the front of the pack. Real opposites. The first time Kelsey cued Murphy to canter, the trainer was not present. This completely broke the rules. But I watched dutifully, having no idea Kelsey was going to try this stunt. Murphy looked like a flailing cartoon horse with long legs flying crazily. But Kelsey hung on, and Murphy soon got the hang of cantering, as we had hoped. Not to be outdone in matters of poor judgment, I once went out to walk Murphy during my lunch break. I was wearing high heels and my work suit. Can anyone see a problem here? I attached the lead to his harness and headed out of the barn toward a big racetrack-sized open meadow. Mistake. Murphy's nostrils flared. He pranced. He clearly hoped he was about to race again. I turned him around, hoping he would calm down. He did. I didn't break a leg or let him run away. Phew. Meanwhile, Kelsey did great in her challenging high school program, despite the death of her dad. I'm certain Murphy had a lot to do with her success. When Kelsey went to college, we hoped to ship Murphy off to school with her. Unfortunately, she started at Boston College, where boarding a horse cost half as much as having another child there. It's true. So Murphy stayed home with me. When she transferred to University of Chicago, there wasn't even a stable nearby. So he stayed with me some more. Eventually, I shipped him to Georgia when Kelsey was working there, after she and her wonderful boyfriend had broken up. So I figured she'd be living there a while, and I hoped Murphy would help her heal again. He did. Only 2 months after Murphy joined her, Kelsey got back together with her boyfriend and moved in with him back in Chicago. They are now married with 3 kids. Murphy retired near Savannah with a beautiful Philly friend of his own. Come, let us worship together, hoping for a better world for all living beings. As Megan Garvey comes forward to light our chalice at First Universalist, and you light a chalice in your own homes, please join me in our chalice lighting words spoken in unison. May we be a people of welcome, here to grow in heart and mind and spirit, and may we reach out to serve our community. Now, Megan is our new ministerial intern. Thank you, Megan. Please rise in body or spirit for our affirmation of faith. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the ends that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and meaning of life, thus to be covenant with each other and with all. Please be seated. Thank you. I invite you now into the spiritual practice of generosity. The good work of this church is funded by the gifts you give. Part of that good work is the animal ministry. This group is dedicated to justice for non-human creatures and respect for our place in the independent web of life. Would any members of animal ministry present raise your hands here or online? I don't see anybody, but I'm sure everyone here cares about animals. We are so grateful for your contributions to the life of this church and the needs of the world. Let us give with grateful hearts this morning. Please place your offering in the offering basket or give online by scanning the QR code on the laminated sheet in your pew. This is also a great time to place visitors' forms in the offering basket. For folks online, please click the link in the chat to give to the First Universalist Church. Thank you for your generosity. This morning's offering will now be gratefully received.
I was born by the river in a little town. Like that river, baby, ain't stopped since. It's been a long, long time coming, but I know change gon' come. Oh yes it is. Knocking right down on my knees. It's been a long, long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh yes it is. It's been too hard for living, but I'm afraid to die here, 'cause I don't know what's up there beyond that sky. It's been a long, long time coming, but I know change gon' come. Oh yes it is.
Today, the story is The Heartless King and the Enormous Dog. It was an oral Indian folk tale put in writing by Sophia Foss, and I've adapted it, kind of in the UU way. I couldn't find an illustrated version of the book. No, that's okay. He's assisting me, but we have not rehearsed this. So I'm going to illustrate this with art and props from my house. I need children and children of all ages to come forward. And I have a job for you today. Every time you hear the word bark or barking, I want you to bark like a dog. Think you guys can do that for me? Yeah, a little help from children of all ages. I love it. Okay. Once upon a time, there lived a king who cared for nobody but himself. He had grown rich from the high taxes he had forced his people to pay, while they had become poorer and poorer. He lived in a gorgeous palace, while the poor people who built it for him still lived in thatched huts and tumbled-down shacks, which let the rain and the cold in. The king's table was always heaped with delicious foods, while most of his people had only one simple meal a day and sometimes couldn't afford even that. But the heartless king, he did not care. If he had everything he wanted, that was all that mattered to him. He didn't even know what affordability was. One day, a beautiful huntress came to the palace gate, intending to teach the king a lesson. She does stand. I just got to get her to do it. Yes, very good. The huntress brought with her an enormous dog. The king was fond of hunting, and this enormous dog fascinated him. So the huntress and the dog were both welcomed in the palace grounds. But the enormous dog was no ordinary dog, and her bark was like the roar of thunder. The first time she opened her mouth and barked, the awful noise shook the walls of the palace and frightened the king and all his courtiers. The dog had stopped. If the dog had stopped with one or two barks, the matter would have been forgotten. But again and again, her fierce roaring shook the palace grounds, and before long, there was no rest between barks. Nobody in the palace could hear themselves think. The king grew desperate and asked for the huntress. She came a little closer. "Why does your dog make such a deafening noise?" he asked. "The dog is hungry," answered the huntress. Immediately, the king ordered a big, beautiful bowl full of meat and veggies brought for the dog. In almost no time at all, the enormous dog licked the bowl clean. Then she immediately began barking again. A second bowl full of food was brought. The dog devoured that food just as quickly, and again the dog began barking. Over and over, the bowls were filled. And over, the enormous dog quickly ate the bowls of food and began barking as loudly as ever. The king was angry. He told the huntress, "You and your dog must leave this palace at once. We cannot endure this deafening noise any longer." But the huntress was firm. "Your Majesty, we have been sent here by someone greater than you are. Thus, we will not obey you." The king was frightened. He made a fist and stared at the huntress. The king was not accustomed to having anyone speak to him in this manner. They always bent the knee and praised him, and even brought him golden gifts. Will nothing satisfy the hunger of your enormous dog, the king said at last. Yes, but nothing that is easy for you to give, answered the huntress. Your Majesty, there are a few rich people in this kingdom like yourself, who are eating nearly all the food and are not sharing it with those who work in the fields to make the food grow and do other important work. As a result, there are many good people and even children who are always hungry. This great, compassionate dog feels the hunger of every person in the kingdom who does not have enough to eat. As long as even one person is hungry, this dog too will be hungry, and she will keep barking. On hearing the beautiful huntress say this, the king was even more frightened than ever. It had never entered his thoughts that he had been doing anything wrong. He had thought the people of his kingdom were simply supposed to do always exactly what he said and what he wanted. It had never occurred to him that he, the king, should think of the happiness or the needs of anyone except himself, and maybe his own family. He was really furious now, from his head to his toes. Either he would go mad hearing the continuous barking of that enormous dog, or something would have to be done to quickly stop it. So he called his advisors together. What shall I do? The advisors bowed their heads and walked off to consider the question. But try as hard as they could, the advisors could see only two possible solutions, neither of which would be likely to appeal to the king. But something must be done. Can anybody think of what could be done to stop the dog? Share. Or maybe kill the dog. Yes, either the enormous dog must be killed, or every hungry person in the kingdom must be fed. No one was brave enough to try to kill the dog, certainly not the king himself. So that meant everybody in the kingdom must somehow be fed. The king's advisors returned to the king and told him plainly what had to be done. They had to shout, of course, because the enormous dog was still barking. Because of all the noise, they even put it in writing. The king hesitated no longer. Put all the servants on the palace grounds to work at once, he commanded. Go to the storerooms and get all the bags of rice and grain you can find. Pile them high on carts. Take also meat from my kitchens and gather vegetables and fruits from my gardens. Send servants out with these loaded carts into all the towns and villages in my kingdom. Command the servants to find the people who are hungry. Give them generously of these foods, and keep on giving food till not a single person in the land is hungry. And then come up with a system for making sure all the people always have enough to eat. King's advisors hurried away to do as their king commanded. Soon there was hustling and bustling all over the place, and shouting and even laughing. The royal servants made so much noise that they could hardly hear the barking of the enormous dog. Presently, a long line of carts, piled high with bags and baskets of food, rolled through the palace gates. All day long, day after day, the carts kept going until they had gone to every village in the kingdom, until food was taken to every house where somebody was hungry. And then the carts went back again, time after time, so that everyone always had enough food. The day had finally come when the enormous dog stopped barking and lay down quietly beside the king. The dog was satisfied. All the people of the kingdom were fed, and not just the king and his friends. For the next few years, the enormous dog stayed by the king's side to be sure that the king never reverted to his old ways. A few times the dog barked to remind the king about justice, and each time the king remembered the important lesson he had learned. Finally, the dog was convinced the king truly understood the meaning of justice. One morning, she simply got up and walked out of the palace and went to bark for justice in another land. Watch out over here, guys, you're in trouble. And that's the end. Thank you.
Because Trish's hands are full, I want to invite you, if you brought food to share with our food and gathering this morning, non-perishable foods or funds to go toward non-perishable foods, you could bring those forward to the front here or send them up with someone else who is going forward. Are there food offerings this morning? And as they come forward, I invite you to sing our doxology as our children head upstairs for religious education. I invite us now into a reverent time of sharing the joys and the sorrows of this gathered community. If you would like to, you can place a hand over your heart to be able to listen from a more heart-centered place. We know so much is going on in our world today, and if you have sorrows or joys to share on behalf of our national or global community, you are encouraged to do so today and always. As Trish places stones into a bowl at the front, I will read aloud the shared joys and sorrows of our community this morning. We share in sorrow with Erica, whose grandfather was recently diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. We share in joy with 2 young members of our church. Both Roman and Lily are turning 8 this week. We share joy with Juanita that the Nature Conservancy, which started in our state, is celebrating 75 years of action. We share both joy and sorrow mixed together with Rachel, who is remembering Malcolm and Susan, her parents, in a celebration at the end of life, the end of this month. And we share joy with Willow, who starts seminary at Colgate Rochester Crozier Divinity School tomorrow. We also invite you today to share in a community ritual to honor the many joys and sorrows we all bring to this space, whether they have been read aloud or we keep them in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. So in a moment, those here in person are invited to come forward, drop their own stone into the bowl. If you need to remain seated, you can always raise a hand and someone will bring a bowl with stones to you. If you're joining us online, we invite you to drop a heart emoji into the chat instead of a stone. Let us join in this collective ritual of honoring the many feelings in this place now. Now the circle of our care is drawn larger. May it increase forevermore. And I invite you now into a time of centering and meditation, followed by some shared silence. By shared silence, as always, we mean the absence of grown-ups talking to one another so that we can listen more closely to the sounds of life, to the bustle of the city outside the doors, to the rumbling footsteps of our children overhead, to the breath of the neighbor in the seat beside us, to the inner workings of our own heart. Let us turn inward now, taking a deep breath, perhaps letting our eyes fall closed, finding a way to feel grounded where we are, to know that we are held by this good earth, by this good church. There are little white bumps on the cut tip of the fig branch I'm trying to propagate. Were they there when I slipped it into its baptismal font of tap water and willow bark? I can't remember. Maybe it's nothing, but it feels like hope. I choke on the smoke from a distant fire that lays ravage to strangers' homes, and this poem tumbles around inside me without an ending. The hottest July we remember, and every year hotter than the last, despair is on the tip of my tongue. There is no return to Eden. But we have carried our fig leaves out to the edge of the abyss, and they promise to take root here. Probably it's nothing, my own sorrow whispers, but it feels like hope. Amen. Blessed be. May it be so. Our hymn of contemplation this month is 123, Spirit of Life. There's this story that I love that the theologian Howard Thurman told. And apologies in advance if you've heard me tell it to you before, and apologies in extra advance, you will certainly hear me tell it to you again. It goes like this. One morning, he was walking down a country road in Georgia, and he spied a farmer working in a field along his way, a neighbor of his. The farmer was an elderly man, and he was planting little seedlings far apart in the field. Dr. Thurman walked over to say hello and saw that the farmer was planting pecan trees. And he wondered at this. He knew that pecan trees are slow growing. It often takes a decade or more before they bear any fruit at all. And he knew this neighbor to be quite old. So Dr. Thurman said to the farmer, "Those are pecan trees." And like a typical farmer, he kept at his work while answering, "Yep." Dr. Thurman pushed on, "They take at least 10 years to mature." "Yep," the farmer answered, digging away. Dr. Thurman got a little more forward and said, "You must be nearly 90 years old, sir." The farmer paused and looked up at him for a moment and said, "Yep." "Why do you plant pecans?" Dr. Thurman pressed on. "You might never live to gather a single nut from these trees." And here the old man really stopped, looked Thurman in the eye and said, "All my life, I have eaten fruit from trees I did not plant. The one who plants only for his own harvest is faithless." You're smart people, so I know you know the pecan trees are a metaphor. The metaphor of planting for a time when we are no longer here is one that I return to again and again as I think about what shared ministry ought to look like. And I need you to understand them also as not at all metaphorical. We use food and hunger often as analogies for a spiritual longing, a metaphysical need. We use planting to help ourselves imagine putting theoretical structures in place, but Howard Thurman was a theologian who asked, when almost no other theologian thought to, "What does my faith have to say to people who are hungry?" He was raised in the early 20th century by a grandmother who had been born into slavery, and he meant literally hungry. What kind of hope is there in spiritual life, he wondered, for people whose backs are against the wall, as he put it. He was to Christianity a dog that would not stop barking. "This high-minded theology is nice," he barked, I'm paraphrasing here, "but there are hungry people out there. What does it say to an empty belly?" We have been promised by liberal religion, by liberalism in general, that we occupy an arc of time that bends ever toward justice, that history has a direction and it's forward, that progress is an inevitable upward line. And I don't think I'm alone in feeling a little disillusioned with that promise these days. Am I right? I'm glad I'm not alone. It held a lot of hope, but it is a view of time that is still rooted in colonialism, that's based on an ethos of conquest, the sense that we could conquer even injustice, that we inevitably will. This last decade has been a wake-up call to much of liberal religion, that we are not so much marching forward through the ages, but holding one another miraculously on this beautiful rock going round and round in circles. It is tempting to imagine that just around the corner, everything will be better. The next protest will be the one to turn the tide. The next president will fix it. A few good funerals will turn this place around. Some of us are confronting, in the face of the Trump administration, what many folks have known for generations: that no president or king, no senator or Supreme Court justice or God was ever coming to save us. I don't mean that national politics don't matter. You know that they do, and I know that they do too. What I mean that there is nothing in our shared theology that should lead us to believe that the highest office of a bloated, faltering empire could ever be the location of our salvation. And when we pin all our hope on the power of empire, we are not better than Christian nationalists. The site of our liberation has never been out there or up there. So I figured, when I prepared for this summer theme of hope, that we needed a hopeful vision to hold on to in the midst of all that. But actually, I think maybe we need a completely new definition of hope altogether. Modern ethicist Miguel de la Torre asked similar questions in his recent book, Embracing Hopelessness. And maybe the title is a bit of a giveaway as to where he landed on those questions. He's pretty clear that hope, in the way that we typically mean it, is used to placate oppressed peoples. It is the bread and circuses that keep people just sated enough to forget the depth of their hunger. Hope becomes a way of domesticating those who are suffering, he wrote. And more importantly, hope is used to placate those of us with just enough power, privilege, and wealth to do something about that oppression. If we can believe that surely things will get better, certainly without any sacrifice or stake on our part, we can remain guilt-free in inaction. If we have hope that the world inevitably progresses toward justice, then we owe each other nothing. But Universalists have always held on to the faith that salvation is not a gift bestowed from on high if we just do enough to earn it. Salvation will not be found in the very infrastructure of the systems that oppress and dehumanize. We have never needed to hope that someone was coming to save us. And what De La Torre believes is that a new ethic can emerge out of the freedom found in a rejection of that kind of hope. At least in the rejection of the hope as we have always known it. When people let go of the hope that they might be saved, they can finally engage in what he calls an ethic para joder. Spanish speakers, apologies for swearing in the pulpit. I'm not going to translate it directly, but in English, let's say it means something like an ethic of screwing with systems of power. English speakers, apologies for swearing in your imaginations. But not that big of an apology. The idea here is that when everything is stacked against you, when you know you can't win, hell, when you're hardly even in the game, all that is left is to screw with the system. When Jesus and his handful of friends and followers came into Jerusalem, he did not spend that last week of his one wild and precious life lobbying the Pharisees, or starting a letter-writing campaign to Rome, or trying to amass an army even, or trying to vote Caesar out of office. What did he do? He went into the temple and started flipping tables. He wasn't trying to defeat the might of empire. He had no hope of winning that fight. He was messing with power. And he didn't win, by the way. He was executed just days later, crying out with that same hopelessness, "Then, my God, why have you forsaken me?" But by show of hands, does anybody know the name of the emperor of Rome at that time? I see maybe a hand and a half. It was Tiberius, in case you wanted to know. Maybe 1.5 of us knew that. And yet you'd be hard-pressed these couple of millennia later to find anyone in this world who doesn't know the name of the man who flipped the tables. Sometimes, like pecan trees, a right-sized hope takes generations to bear fruit. You can believe in a God in this church, or not. We have no doctrine on that. But what our faith does not leave room for is belief that there is a God who will step in to protect the innocent and the vulnerable so that we don't need to worry about doing that ourselves. Letting go of a hope in a Savior who will protect the oppressed frees us to be the ones to do it. Miguel de la Torre retells the story that's a church cliche at this point, of a beach filled with starfish that washed up in a storm. You know this, right? You know where I'm going. And a child is throwing them back to sea one by one. And there's this grumpy old man who snarks that she can't save them all. And she's like, "I'll save this one," right? And De La Torre proudly says, "I'm that grumpy man." Because when you're looking at the one starfish in the hand of its savior, your focus is on the hope that you might be lucky like that one, and you're forced to look away from the carnage on the beach, as he puts it. I've lived in the Rochester City School District for almost 20 years now. The borders between Rochester and neighboring districts are some of the most segregated in the country. The city district is severely under-resourced to serve its students, over half of whom live in poverty. And for 20 years, I have hoped that change is just around the corner. I have been the one saying, surely the simple solution of a countywide school district will come to be. Progress is inevitable. Surely the next school board, the next mayor, the next county legislature, the next governor will be the difference we need. They'll fix it. I'm now on the PTA of my children's city school, and up close, I can't not see the carnage on the beach. The solution just around the corner seems less and less winnable at this right-sized hope. And more importantly, I have to ask, like Howard Thurman did, what do those politics mean to a child who's hungry right now? An ethic of hopelessness doesn't have to mean we stop believing a better world is possible, a just education system is possible. It just means we don't lose sight of the 20 years of hungry children while we wait for it. Will we have education justice in Rochester, in America, in the world? I don't know. What I do know is that right now, teachers fill the backpacks of their students with leftover food from the cafeteria on Fridays because they haven't let hope for the next world distract them from the fact that in this one, 2 free meals at school are all that some kids get. What I do know is that instead of hoping that the district bureaucracy will connect the right families to the right social worker who will connect them to the right resources, parents with means have filled empty supply closets with extra boots and coats and uniforms so that kids can be warm and dry right now. That's an ethic of hopelessness in the system, an ethic para joder. Another example, you've probably heard of Flock, the company who makes automatic license plate reader cameras, devices used by law enforcement to track people's movement and activity. Local, state, and federal police, including ICE, use them to surveil the public. It is a fairly new technology, but there are over 120,000 of them installed across the US. There are dozens in Monroe County. If that makes you feel hopeless, you're not alone. What power could we have to defeat a surveillance state of that magnitude? Well, I will tell this to your hopelessness. Guadalupe County, Texas, has recently experienced so much petty vandalism of their Flock cameras that they decided to cancel their contract with the company because they couldn't afford the replacement costs. I'm not making a recommendation here, but there's an ethic para joder. Here at our own church, you advocated for 24-hour public bathrooms downtown for years, to little avail. The hope of winning could have held our attention away from the immediacy of the need, the carnage on the beach. But a year ago, it was with an inspiring degree of hopelessness that we decided to stop waiting for a savior in the halls of power, rent a portable bathroom, call the press, and dare the city to fine us. Jodiendo, y'all. The dog in the story didn't defeat the king with his own strength. Didn't wait for the next definitely better ruler. Didn't hold on to hope that the king's 30-year plan would end hunger. He became a pest to power until every belly was full. If you're really uncomfortable leaning into an ethic of hopelessness, I'm with you. I think maybe what we really need is a new definition of hope. I'm not about to suggest we stop believing that we can be liberated by the inexplicable grace of a love that leaves no one out. But it is not a power out there that comes to save us. It is not a love at the top of any hierarchy, trickling down eventually. Our hope is in a love that lives at the center of us, by which I mean a love that lives in the spaces between us, in the carnage on the beach we refuse to turn away from, in the full belly that would be empty without us. We are the only ones who can save us. Our saving grace, if we find it, will be in the mutuality of our real relationship to one another. That's the kind of love that screws with power. It is in the showing up with our actual living bodies to tend the actual living bodies of our siblings. It is in the feeding of the hungry and the housing of the homeless and the freeing of the prisoner and the sheltering of the foreigner. And I do mean us to take that literally. For what it's worth, I think Jesus did too. When I was serving in the UU Church in Canandaigua, we held a vigil in our sanctuary for Sam Nordquist, a trans man who was murdered in the Finger Lakes in 2025. Our neighbors poured in numbers I would love for no one to let the fire marshal know about. And as I held the door for neighbor after neighbor, what felt like the entire queer community of the Finger Lakes and then some, the sorrow in the room was palpable. It was the kind of sorrow that has the capacity to turn into despair. And I thought that's what hopelessness would lead us to, if I'm being really honest. I thought that might be just what happened. When one of the last speakers at that vigil said in their sorrow mixed with rage, "No one is here to save us. It's just us. We have to save each other." And they said it out of hopelessness. And I heard it from a place of hopelessness at first. Anyway. And then I watched from the back of the sanctuary as across the crowded room, people took that declaration as an offering to shift hope from out there to right here. Hands reached out, finding other hands to hold. Arms fell across the shoulders of neighbors they'd just met. The hopelessness turned into blessing and solidarity. "It's just us," people whispered in response. "We are going to have to save ourselves." Just us suddenly seemed like enough, like maybe more than enough to save us all, like a new hope that might be enough to feed a world that is so very hungry for it. There is no ruler who can save us from systems that would structure this world from the top down. The only force of salvation, of liberation, is a love that moves sideways, among us, between us. We are the ones we have been waiting for. And there are millions of us showing up for one another in city councils and school boards and PTA meetings, soup kitchens and queer resource centers and sanctuaries like this, everywhere across the whole face of this beautiful world. We are the ones who can save us. And what a living hope that is. May it be so. And amen. Would you rise in your bodies and spirits and sing together now? I invite you to sing our closing hymn, number 108, "My Life Flows On in Endless Song." invite you to remain standing if you are, as Trish extinguishes our chalice flame this morning, and let us read together the words printed on the screen as she does. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts, with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in, until we arise together again. And as we close our service, I invite you to place a hand over your heart. If you're joining us online, you could turn your settings to gallery view and look upon the faces of those here with you. And for those of us in the room, let's take a moment to look around at everyone gathered here today. I offer as a benediction these words from the Reverend Julian Soto. We are the people who return to love like a North Star, and to truth that we are greater together than we are alone. Our hope does not live in some glimmer of an indistant future. By covenant and the movement forward of one right action and the next, we know that one day we will arrive at home. Amen. Everyone is invited to join us for coffee hour immediately after the service in the Clara Barton Lounge through the doors right behind me, or in the current Zoom meeting, the one you're already in. If you're heading to Newcomers Circle, I will find you in the Clara Barton Lounge.
My son has that tattooed on his arm, and somebody noticed it. I was kind of embarrassed, for he's 26. And I reminded him of how awesome that is to have in his arm. I've got my own moral compass to steer by. A guiding light beats a spirit in the sky. And loud preaching voices, empty vessels scream so loud as they move across the crowd. Fools and thieves are well disguised in the temple and marketplace. In the temple and marketplace. Like a stone in the river against the floods of spring, I will quietly resist. Like the willows in the wind or the cliffs along the ocean, I will quietly resist. I will quietly resist. I don't have faith in faith. Don't believe in belief. You can call me faithless. You can call me faithless. But I still cling to hope. And I believe in love. And that's faith enough for me. Yeah, that's faith enough for me. Got my own spirit level for balance, to tell if my choice is leading up or down. and all the shouting voices try to throw me off my course. Some by sermon, some by force. Fools and thieves are dangerous in the temple and marketplace. In the temple and marketplace. Like a forest vows to winter beneath the deep white silence, I will quietly resist. Like a flower in the desert that only blooms at night, I will quietly resist. Don't have faith in faith. Don't believe. You can call me faithless. You can call me faithless. But I still cling to hope. And I believe in love. And that's faith enough for me. Yeah, that's faith enough for me.